Hello all and welcome, and I am the Realist Philosopher. And in this video, I would like to talk about a belief that is widely held, and that is the belief that perception is reality. Now, this belief is often held by those who hold very little understanding of what it really means or represents. Let me explain a little bit more. Now, when someone says that perception is reality, the meaning of those words, what they're actually saying, is that reality isn't fixed. Instead, what it means is that reality is relative, based on the person that is viewing it. For example, if I see an event occur, my perception of what happened, it might be different than that of another person. To someone who believes that perception is reality, my perception is the reality of that situation. There's no objective yardstick with which to judge the event. This is called relativism, which is what this saying represents. Basically a view of reality being something that is relative based on the person that is perceiving it. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that reality is based solely on one's point of view and the interpretation of the person perceiving it. That means that reality is in the mind only and is in no way objective. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that those who say perception is reality are saying that the mind is first and foremost, and that reality is nothing more than our perceptions. The implication being that there's no such thing as objective reality, and everything is subjective. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that the world and everything in it, well, that it effectively does not exist. It means that the world and everything in it effectively doesn't exist without a mind there to perceive it. For example, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a noise? Well, no, not if you subscribe to the belief that perception is reality. There's no one there to perceive the sound, so the sound didn't happen. So that's what it really means to believe that perception is reality. It means that there's no such thing as objective truth or objective morality or good and evil. These things, in the mind of a perception is reality type individual, are nothing more than constructs of the mind. That being the case, neither they nor anything else would even exist without the mind. So, such labels as good and evil are, in their view, completely arbitrary, and they only have meaning to those people who choose to believe in them. Hence, one man's sinner is another man's saint, and one man's devil is another man's angel. Except, that's not how reality actually works. For you see, one's perceptions, which are touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing, well, those are also real. And they're a consequence of reality. They are caused and created by reality. They are real physical constructs, created by said reality as a means to interact with it. They're not ephemeral or subjective in any way, shape, or form. That's like asking, would your eyes exist if you were not there to use them in the first place to see? That's an absurd question. Of course your eyes exist. If they didn't exist, you wouldn't be able to use them to see with. Jesus Christ. Hence, the existence of your perceptions, with which you use to perceive the world in the first place, are proof positive that said world exists in the first place. We see because there's something there to see with, and something to see, something that is there whether we are there to see it, perceive it, or not. The same goes for our other senses. The very fact that we have senses at all should tell you that there's something there to objectively interact with in the first place, which actually exists. To suppose otherwise would be to presuppose something, which is to ignore the use of logic and reason. We can only deal with what is. We can't deal with what isn't. Reality is, and we have to deal with what is as it is. Emotions, well, they're subjective views of the world. And subjective views of the world do not change how the world is. How we wish the world to be, how we would like it to be, how we see it as being, that changes nothing in regards to how it actually is. If perception were actually reality, then things like, temperature wouldn't matter. You could perceive it to be hot on a cold day and cold on a hot day. And that's what it would be. Reality would conform to your view, your wishful thinking, your subjective view of things. Humans would no longer need to buy clothes, as they could simply perceive that they were dressed normally, and that would be the case. However, clearly this is not so. Why then, when the fact that reality is so obviously not mutable and changeable in accordance with subjective, abstract thought, do so many people still repeat this phrase so often? Perception is reality. Well, I think it has to do partly with people not thinking very much about it. It sounds interesting, and I believe it also makes some people feel like they're more in control than they really are, like they have some kind of stranglehold on reality and what constitutes truth within their own little bubbles, as if each person has their own truth. This is something you've probably heard from the mouths of Hollywood celebrities, the phrase, "Embrace your truth." I believe Oprah made that popular at the Oscars. We need to embrace our truths. Except there is no your truth. There's only truth. One man's sinner is not another man's saint. He's either a sinner or a saint. It does not change what he is, depending on who you ask. There's only objective reality and nothing else. This belief that perception is reality, the fact that it's so popular, it is so because it's been made popular, and quite on purpose. It's been made popular by those who wish to destroy Western society. Marxists, feminists, socialists, those who wish to destroy the Western world by convincing everyone that there's no such thing as objective truth or morality. In turn, anything and everything becomes permissible. Now, if you believe the narrative that all truth and reality itself are subjective and mutable, relative to the person that is perceiving them, and totally open to interpretation, then you're far less likely to raise your voice when certain people start taking really extreme steps to fulfill the so-called progressive change in America and other Western countries that socialists, feminists, Marxists, essentially leftists, want so much. Hot is hot. Cold is cold, and good and evil do exist. Relativism and the view that perception is reality are wrong-headed and dangerous views indeed. Your perceptions are an input tool. They're not an output tool. And the moment you start believing that they are is the moment you begin to deny reality and open yourself up to being manipulated by any smooth-talking charlatan who wishes to play on your emotions and tells you what you want to hear, tells you what makes you feel good, tells you what sounds good, emotions that within you are paramount and the foundation in your mind of existence, since you're someone who believes in relativism. This makes you someone who is a subjectivist, meaning someone who sees little if any credence or value in the idea of objective truth. Instead, you're someone who allows your emotions to control you. And in the end, that's what a perception is reality type person is, a subjectivist. And when there's no objective truth to counter one's feels, then the only truth for that person is what feels best to them. Yes, feels over truth and emotions over facts. At least if those facts clash with what you feel to be true. Perhaps now you're starting to see the very real dangers behind the belief that perception is reality, behind the belief that objective reality doesn't exist, which is 100% what this saying means. This saying represents a very dangerous ideological view of the world, a view that's allowed all sorts of atrocities to be committed in the name of creating a better, more ideal world. Ideal for who? Keep this in mind the next time you hear someone say this to you, and counter by saying, perception is not reality. Reality is perception. And then tell them why. Because the only way we're going to get rid of this dangerous nonsense is to recognize it when we hear it and confront it. Anyway, I hope I've adequately explained the true meaning behind this saying. Feel free to post a comment if you're seeking clarification on any of the points I've made here in this video. And also check out my Patreon pages in the description to help support my future work. And that's it for this video. I am the Realist Philosopher, and I wish you a good day. Take care.